Then the doors burst open. The king and queen walk through. There's our precious daughter. If they did not know what love meant, who would?
Tonight we're going to be discussing an issue related to transgenderism. And to be specific, there's a program that was introduced across America in a lot of schools. And it was basically read a book with transgenders, right? And so a lot of governors supported this. You guys favored Obama supported this back in Chicago. I'm not a fan of him, but we'll talk on that later. So, but again, this has kind of been sweeping the nation, okay? And there's not a lot of due diligence that's been done as a result of, having these transgender read to these children. A lot of parents are on board. A lot of politicians thought it was a good idea. And I felt like it was indoctrination. So have you heard the story before?
I have not.
Never heard it?
No. But I definitely think it's something that we should talk about. I think it should be a choice of a parent, not the school, to introduce such things to their kids.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. What's your take on it?
Thumbs down. No.
Thumbs down.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, man. There's no way that that type of decision should be left up to politicians and bureaucrats.
Right.
At all. And I don't know if I haven't read the story.
Okay.
Actually. You did tell me about it before we came on air. But I've heard certain other stories similar to that. And my take is that anytime you take the parent out of the equation, and there's always a problem.
Sure. So let me give you a little backstory. So this is actually the second drag queen story hour reader from Houston that was kind of exposed as a convicted child sex offender. So that's what makes it so striking and so disappointing about the whole story.
So they didn't vet this?
They clearly didn't vet the guy, right? And I'm calling him as he is. I don't do the pronoun thing. So the guy is a convicted child sex offender. So just a little backstory. So this actually took place in Houston, Texas. So a group known as the Houston Mass Resistance Activists are the ones who actually exposed this person, the second one. And so he's been involved in reading stories to children at local libraries. Well, the sad part about it is, so LifeSite News actually reported that he had multiple sex assaults against young children ages 4, 5, 6, and 8.
Wow.
And he's reading stories to our children.
Wow.
Now that may seem harmless. He's reading a story. That may seem harmless, but it's also the content and what he's reading. He's typically they're reading, transgender gay books.
Right.
And
gay
further
thing.
to indoctrinate our children.
Wants to be a drag queen when they grow up.
Let me get some feedback.
Because children are children, and with all the things going on in the world, I definitely believe that they should be kids and in a kid-like environment as long as they can be. You want them to enjoy the imagination of a child, the thought of not having fears, and this opens them up to
Can both be grooms.
To an audience of preschoolers, toddlers, and their caregivers.
The hips on the drag queen go swish, 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 swish.
to go to a field trip or not. You should be able to sign off if you want your child to participate in it.
Here's that's an interesting point. But here's the problem with some parents are for this.
Drag Queen Story Hour is fantastic because it addresses all of these issues of gender fluidity and self-acceptance and all of these topics that are real, are very, very real.
A lot of parents are for this. That's why
because it's PC.
Because it's PC, right? So everybody wants this PC culture, or what they call progressivism. So you're not progressive enough. So if you're not progressive, and notice that they only use progressivism when they're talking about transgendered or gay, the LGBT, X900, 600, whatever the additional letters are. So they only talk about being progressive when it's related to that. So a lot of parents don't want the negative stigmatism that comes with saying that I'm against that. I'm not for that. So that seems to be part of the problem. People are fearful. So why are people, and I want to ask you and both of you, why are people so fearful about talking about homosexuality and transgenderism? Outside of the obvious that they come after you. the letters will attack you.
One woman told us how she'd been attacked by a trans activist at another meeting who was later found guilty of assault.
I'm still angry about the assault and angry about the trial. My anger could...
She's faced.
Well, are you blocking us? Don't you dare. Are you... can somebody film this?
Here, a group of protesters are blocking her way.
We need to get into there.
I don't like being on a stairwell where I'm frightened that I'm going to be pushed down by a man with a balaclava and a mask who's telling me that he's a woman, and that if I don't accept that, I'm a Nazi.
The sensitive subject. I don't know why they're fearful of it. For me, I have friends and family who's tried it or is in it. For me, it's not a sensitive subject for adults to have. But for kids, you know, I think that's when it becomes sensitive, because you're trying to raise them into productive human beings and you want them to know about the world, but I think it's stages to that. That's like saying, okay, your newborn baby is ready to eat Thanksgiving dinner. They're not. They have to build up to that. And with these type of subjects, I think they should build up to that as the parent sees fit. Because maybe the parents are, you know, involved in that lifestyle. So then, yes, that child needs to know about it. That child should be around it. But for the child who's not in that environment, I believe it's up to that parent to expose them to them, or at least to talk to them about it before a stranger comes in and tells them their version of it.
Yeah, I think we're way beyond that. I mean, because she's right. We have individuals who, individual kids who go home to same-sex parents.
God help us.
Right. So we're way beyond, you know what I'm saying, that point. We reached the point of no return when it comes to educating our kids, trying to keep them away from certain things. I don't know what the solution is, other than the fact that we need to pray more. And I don't know.
That seems like a passive solution, don't you think?
I mean, obviously we have to get involved. Those who believe different have to be more vocal than they are, because they're well organized. They have an agenda that's been, I guess, rolling along for at least 20, 30 years now. And so if we're gonna fight that, we just have to be more vocal. You know, we have to stand up and say that, look, no, that's not cool, right? But when we do, that's where the PC come from. It's like, okay, you say it's not cool, we're gonna show you, right?
And I think for them, they just want everyone to become comfortable around them and not degrade them or disrespect them because of the choices that they made, which is true. If that's the lifestyle you choose, that's with you. But when it comes to someone else's kids, it's a difference. That's where you have to, okay, I get your rights and all of that, but this is a child that I am raising. It is my responsibility to raise them. Give me that right to choose when I'll say Santa Claus is not real, or the Tooth Fairy is not real, or this person is choosing to be a man and he's a woman, or this woman is choosing to be a man. I should be able to walk my child into that and educate them on that when I'm ready, and I think my child is ready too. For the kids who have that lifestyle, I can understand how this will be something to look into. They still need to do a background check. I don't just let anybody into school. Just like the teachers have to have all their licensing and background checks, anyone's walking in that's participating in programs should be looked at as well.
You know what, see, and I agree with everything you just said. I think the issue, though, I think where I find myself being more critical is that it seems like more and more black people are accepting. Right? If you think about the television shows that come on, you can't find not one show on television that ain't got a gay scene, that ain't got, two boys going at it.
I think
we're accepting it.
I think the reason why that is because they've done a hell of a job of pairing their struggle with our civil rights struggle. Sure. It's a civil rights issue, and that's how they present it. And so it's easy.
So you're saying we're ignorant? You're saying we don't?
are we saying we're dumb? I think we're being used and abused.
Okay, I'd say we just dumb to accept that.
Dumb.
No, I would say we're dumb to even accept that.
I would say that.
Right?
But when you, the problem is that you have black people that are gay, white people, Mexicans. You have all
walks of life.
All
I got
walks of life that are gay. So it's like when you say it's not a civil rights issue, then you can't, you know what I'm saying, you can't take that away from the black person in the group, because he's black and he may have relatives, or obviously he has relatives, ancestors that went through the struggle. So he's like, okay, well, you can't disqualify me, right? Because I lived that life. You can't disqualify me because I'm gay, right? But then he has his white counterpart, his Asian counterpart that comes alongside him and say, yes, that includes.
The LGBT movement is a movement for the right to practice a certain behavior. The struggle for black folk is a struggle to be treated like a human being.
To touch on that, right? So that's a part of the agenda. And I do believe that's an agenda. So that's pretty much the premise that I'm coming from. Okay. And so when it goes back further down to Henry Kissinger in 1974, when he released memos specifically targeting underdeveloped countries, that was disguised of undeveloped countries, but it's really African Americans to be particular, because they were targeting resources in these countries. So they forced these leaders to support their agenda of population control. And that's what it was about. So that's why I think it's even more disturbing for me when I see black people get on board with it. Because if you're gay as a woman, or you're gay as a man, who's making our children, right? So if the agenda is to kill you off out of fear of you, then we're just giving in to it. We just surrendered everything to them.
That's deep.
And why are we doing it?
That's deep, and that's another way to look at it. So if we're going to go that route, I think mental health and acceptance is another issue in our culture.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are not seeing people for who they are if they're not considered popular or the common person. They're not doing the common things. They're looked at as weird, or they're isolated or cast out for just being them. I think if we start loving on each other and accepting each other as they are, you won't have people trying to figure out, well, what gender might accept me more than this gender, or what person might, deal with me more than this person, what group. It won't be any of that. But it's so many people looking for what's wrong about you or what's weird about you, that they're finding whatever happiness they can find. And sometimes it may not be in homosexuality. It may be with drugs or alcohol or a lot of things. But then it goes back to mental health. I really think it plays on that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I believe homosexuality and all the alphabets associated with that, it's all mental health issues to begin with. I think transgenderism, what we're talking about, is this drag queen stuff, it all goes back to mental health. So when the psychology board changed that out of the medical text back in the day, they didn't give a reason why they took it out as a mental disorder. It was really due to the pressure that was being from the alphabet boys, and we ain't talking about the FBI, that they put on to these doctors and these people, these psychiatrists to change it. And that was the reason why they changed it.
That homosexuality was a mental illness in this book until 1974. But since you brought it up, I'll start with that. If you read the American Psychiatric Association position paper on the removal of homosexuality from this book as a mental illness, and I have it, it's available online, it clearly says that we did not change this classification because we had sufficient evidence to prove that people were born this way. So one of the questions that got to be dealt with from the Eurocentric mental health framework that we're dealing with this issue in, why?
but they gave no reason in the book.
Right.
But any other condition they did.
Up until that point, it was classified.
It was classified as a mental disorder, and it still is. Is there any confusion about it? You know, as a matter of fact, those who go through and actually have the surgery are 40+% more likely to still commit suicide after they've had the reassignment surgery, right? So if it's about acceptance, right, does that make you, if a boy or a woman, they get the surgery, does that make them the gender that they want to be because they've had the assignment? Does the genetics still tell them that you are still the sex you were before you got the reassignment surgery?
For some people, they still have their feelings or their thoughts, or they want to go back. For most, they are happy. They're able to go forward. But I think it all comes down, and a lot of them may not agree, but it comes down to acceptance. Everybody wants someone to understand them, to love them, at least to just let them be.
Okay, you sure that's it? You sure it's just accepting? That's good.
Okay, let's define. Let's define acceptance and what love looks like for real. How do you define that? Like, because it's like, all right, do you really want to accept anything? Do you really want to just?
Well, in the household, family should be accepting of each other.
Of anything. Yeah,
because you have to. Everyone should walk out of their home confident and loved and enriched, and a lot of people don't leave their home feeling that way.
Okay.
Of anything, accepting of anything.
Well, as a kid, yeah, like most kids, what's the most that they can do?
No boundaries, no nothing.
Oh, that's where the teaching comes in. That's where the parents get to say and guide them in the way they should go.
Okay. All right, so I have to take this back.
Come on.
Okay, run it back.
Because to me, it boils down to your worldview, right? So, from a biblical standpoint, all that falls up under sin, right? So, you can say, well, it's more free love. You can define love in a worldly way, like you just did. Like, okay, in the family, we should be more, accepting to certain things, be a little bit more free. You know what I'm saying?
Not free, but that's kind of biblical. Love thy neighbor.
No, but it's out of context,
okay,
right?
Come on.
Because God gave us a structure, right? All right, so He made man and woman, right? Not man and man. That's the first thing. So with that context, right, the whole gay and lesbian thing is out the water.
Well, see, I was speaking on an individual basis, like with mom, dad, brother, sister in the household. I wasn't speaking about
in sense of feeling whole, and I understand that. So
we're walking out to the world. I wasn't
children,
speaking about relationships.
with my wife and I, our children should feel whole, that they know that they're loved unconditionally when they leave the house.
Right.
And it shows in how they, and how they interact with people. Mm-hmm. You can tell, and I can tell, certainly, a person who's had a mother and a father in the household.
Right, but even in that context, we won't be accepting of anything.
No, I agree, and that's why he wanted to key in on anything.
As parents, we won't accept anything from our kids.
Right.
Even in that environment, even if we're showing them love, unconditional love, there is a condition actually to our love in a lot of ways, right?
Toward our children?
To our children, our family.
I would say not to the children. That's what's going to build them. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're going to guide them and tell them right from wrong, but at the end of the day, that they're an individual person. They're going to make their decision. Mm-hmm. So you can't just stop loving your child because they made a mistake or they're doing something wrong.
No, I'm not saying stop loving them. What I mean is, let me define what the love is. What I'm saying is that sometimes love is hard.
Agreed.
Right? It can be hard. So, not allowing your child to do whatever he wants to do or she wants to do can be hard for them, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to do it anyway. Because some people nowadays, we had a concept of say, I'm going to love you and I'm going to be soft on you. I'm going to accept certain things accept certain things from you. And that's a problem. So they get it twisted. See, when you look at the family structure, there always is upside down already. So, when you have the mentality like, okay, well, we're gonna accept my son walking around in his mother high heel shoes.
Remember learning how to walk?
No, I don't.
I remember learning how to walk, but it was with these shoes on.
No, it's not fun, right? And then that causes conflict. So it has to be some type of, you can still love them and be corrective, right? That's all I'm saying.
So I don't disagree with you. And that's why I think we need to get back to starting as early as possible for guiding and loving on our kids. Early as possible, because now you have their undivided attention. You're able to show them the way, and I agree with it being true. Train up a child in the way they should go. They will not part from it. Even if they stray a little bit, they're going to come back to it all the time. All the time. So if you're catching it early and in the home and not having people read to them, you know, outside of what you're doing, it's going to come together. So when I say acceptance, I don't mean accepting everything they do wrong and every, you know, just the little stuff like, okay, this child may not talk a lot, but okay, they like to dance. Or this child can't dance, but they like to, you know, their individual characteristics. We have to love on them as an individual. And you know, build on the things that their strengths. We have to build on their strengths so that they don't feel like, okay, nobody's paying attention to me, nobody's looking at me, and then they're going into other areas where they don't need to go. Yeah, because the parent is not building on their strengths.
I never had specifically, like for myself, like a role model or someone to look up to at an early age to say it was okay to be gay, to be a drag queen, to be, you know, whatever I wanted to be. So that's why I think it's important to be here today, to show the kids that, you know, there is someone that you can look up to and you can be who you want to be.
At it, and we've assisted in that, right? And so when you don't have a child who is whole, who do not have a mother and a father in the household, that leaves them prone to the outside forces to then come in and influence and indoctrinate and so on and so forth. So especially in the African American community where a lot of fathers are out of the household, unfortunately. So women are forced to take care of their children alone. And you have these children, these mothers are working how many hours they're working a day. And attending school and doing all of these things and trying to raise children.
Go to the hair shop.
And they got to do all these other things. So the truth of the matter is that a lot of our women are not as engaged in the development of their children beyond the household. So they leave people like this to come into school to raise their children, daycare to raise their children. And as a result, who's going to have the bigger influence? So yeah, you give them all the love you want, but when she come home, she tired. She got to go. She might be in school as well. She got to get the study done. She might pop in a microwave dinner, watch TV, and she's not giving them the attention that they need, and also explaining to them, hey, listen, you know, listening. What happened during your day? So she can then intervene if necessary. So I think that's a big part of the problem. But
to be a drag queen when they grow up.
I think it's just important that he sees this as something that's normal, it's accepted, it's not anything to be ashamed of. And if I just keep taking him to events like this, it's just going to be a part of life.
Everybody say love.
Love. The schools need to be careful and allow these parents to play a part in the education and what their child is learning, especially when it's going off the basic subjects of math, science, and social studies. I don't agree with that particular one, and though like sex education was a big problem to get into schools, but it was something that was needed. But even for that, the parents had to sign off for it. If your parent didn't sign it, you couldn't go to that class. You had to go somewhere else. I think the same should be when it comes to teaching them about homosexuality, transgender, all of those things, especially in elementary school. That's so young, because now they might want to start thinking about, okay, well, how do they get intimate? That's not something they should be learning in elementary school. When they hit puberty, yes, but not at 6 and 7.
So why are we allowing politicians then? Why are we blindly voting for politicians who hold on to those same values or opposite values from yourself. So we blindly go to the box and to the office and we vote for these people and we put them in place, and then we act surprised when we have these policies.
It's true. We need to figure out how to get more information on the people that we vote for. That is very true. Because
we so emotional.
Okay, can I interject real quick?
Come
I think y'all missing the real point. The real point is our culture is not into politics unless they get somebody that they can beat up on, like a Trump, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody can agree that Trump is like, oh man, he's the worst president ever. Right?
I don't agree with that.
I'm just
saying,
go ahead. I'm just saying they, and it's easy for people to beat up on him because he's aloof, right? Mm-hmm. So we can get behind that as a culture, but it's much harder to challenge, politicians in our own city, politicians that we probably, or just say personalities, around our own cities, like radio stations. They play garbage all day, but nobody challenges them, right? You got videos and they play 24/7, and nobody challenges those people, So it's much harder for us to do that, right, than to be on Facebook talking about how bad Trump is or how bad this person is.
Knowledge is power. And with that, I think if they knew where to go and what to look for, it would be better. Because most times, a lot of the people who are voting are only looking at the commercials. Mm-hmm. They're battling commercial information. They don't know where to go to actually see, okay, what this person has done, what city they've been at, what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I think if they knew how to get that information, like other cultures do, they will be more informed and more entitled to vote. But at the same time, there's so many people to vote for. We're not going to win every battle.
Okay, so how about this? This is probably the most. See, I'm the type of person, like, when I go vote, I'll sit there. If I don't know somebody, I refuse to just mark a ballot. I will sit there and I will research you on my phone. I've done it many times, especially judges, because that's very important to me. So I will sit there and I will look at the judges, kind of look at whatever bills I can find on them, whatever decisions that they've made before I cast that ballot. Okay, so what I would say is a lot of us, and he's correct, I agree with Aaron that a lot of us are not interested in politics unless it's, giving away free government assistance. I said it, and it's true for a lot of people, especially when Trump got elected. A lot of people, the narrative was when Trump got elected was, he gonna send us back to Africa, where you never even been. Mm-hmm. Or he's gonna take away our welfare. Well, you probably should be off of it anyway. Okay, so that was the narrative. So that's because we're not informed. So I would say, first of all, search what are your values. Do a lot of self-reflection. What are your values? Hold the candidate responsible to what your values are. If you do that, you really can't go wrong. If you say you profess you believe in God and Christ as your Lord and Savior, right? So how does this candidate square with that? I think that's probably the best way to go about voting for anybody. So I want to give you two the last take, and then we're going to move on to the next. So just your final thoughts on everything. How do you feel, Aaron? And then we'll give our guest the last.
Okay, well, I would say that we're going way too far thinking about on a political standpoint.
But everything that's where that's where this came from. The politicians, the governor is the one who backed this. That's where it comes from.
As far as a solution, I'm saying that you have to be more local. It starts with what's going on around you. It starts with yourself, right? You have to, like you said, you have to do more self-reflection.
Sure.
Right? And figure out what your values are. And if you ask that question, right, what are our values? What do we value? We value reality TV shows. We value power, right, which is a TV show, right? Right?
Hit close to home.
What you say? I didn't hear you.
Wait a minute.
Right, but I'm saying, but these are the conversations that I hear at work, right?
Yes.
I don't hear conversations I hear at home. Right, I don't hear conversations about local politicians, local school districts, school boards, what's going on in our neighborhoods. I don't hear those when I'm at work. What I do hear is power. What happened on Power last
Game
night.
of Thrones.
What happened on the BET Awards or
Empire when that was popping.
The Desperate Housewives, whatever it is. You
Real
know what I'm saying?
Housewives,
That's what
yeah,
I
all
heard.
that.
So that's what our values are, right? And it plays out every day because that's all we hear, right? But then when it's time for us to go to the booths to vote, right? Like when I said about Trump, he's an easy target because they throw this label out on him, like, hey, you can see how he acts, but then it's easy to say, oh man, he's racist, or he's a, you know, whatever.
But they can't identify actual
right,
issues.
Right, but we value what we put our time into, right? And we put our time into all those other things, entertainment, you know what I mean, getting our hair weave done and you know what I'm saying, nails done all the time, and you know, the latest this, the latest that. We telling ourselves, we showing ourselves what we value most.
So what are your final thoughts?
I think that we need to get more involved in the schools, the meetings, the higher powers, the councilmen, all of that. We need to get more informed about it. I definitely think for that particular article, they should have reached out to the parents. I think if the child is still a minor, the parents should be involved on what their child is being exposed to. As far as the things that leads up into that, I definitely agree that entertainment has become more of a priority than our priorities themselves. I think we all need to take a step back and start making sure our business is taken care of first before we engage in those other activities. And as far as the person who's doing that, I feel sad for them, but it goes back to, they have to check these people. Our children are the future. If we can't protect our children, we're hurting ourselves at the end of the day. So I definitely think that they should be watching out who they bring around, the programs and things outside of the curriculum. Parents need to be involved.
Definitely.
They should definitely get a say. If we have to sign for a field trip, we should have to sign for a particular class that talks about sensitive subjects like that. Because for the kids who has that type of family and lifestyle, yes, that would be okay for them, as long as that person hasn't committed any crimes.
Right.
But for the parents of children who are not exposed to that, they may need time, or their parents may need to tell them their thoughts and views on it, and what they may hear, and prepare them for that. That may be a lot for a child to take in when they've never been exposed to it.
Right.
So I think they need to proceed with caution on that.
Right. Now I'd like to make an amendment real quick with what I said, because I said I named all reality shows, but it does apply also to sports, because
entertainment,
men like football, basketball, and all these
That's
other
what
sports.
entertainment is.
Right.
Enter to be detained.
Right, exactly. So I didn't want to make it seem like I was picking on one genre of entertainment. It's just like
I'm targeting those specifically.
ESPN.
I'm targeting
yes,
specifically
ESPN is
because
football,
black people
basketball, and
have
all
been
that.
captured
And
and
the boxing.
captivated by the newest rave, the newest power, and all this other stuff.
And guys will pay for pay-per-view to watch their sports and stuff
No, you're
like
absolutely
that.
right, and that, there is nothing, and I certainly, to be honest as possible, there's nothing wrong with any of those things in moderation.
Right.
The problem is people binge on them, and it becomes their life, it becomes their idol, and everything else takes a back seat.
Right.
So with that being said, I agree with both of you all. I think you had some excellent points, you know. And what I will say, just to your point, I agree with Aaron that it is the culture. And it starts at home. And so, but in terms of what you were saying, in terms of the parents, remembering that a lot of us are now accepting this. So a lot of parents are accepting this. So there are some, like the mass resistance activists. These are the people who kind of dug deeper into this guy's past, who determined, okay, he was a convicted sex offender.
Right.
And so there are people actively resisting the powers to be.